Hallo YouTube, was geht ab? Herzlich willkommen zu einer neuen Reaction auf dem Plus-Channel. Wir schauen uns ein Video von Mr. Who is the Boss an, nämlich How NVIDIA just defeated every other tech company. Ja, der Titel ist eigentlich selbsterklärend. Ich würde sagen, lasst gerne ein Like und Abo da, wenn euch die Reactions gefallen. Folgt für mehr Reactions und ich würde sagen, rein geht's ins Video.
On the 18th of June 2024, NVIDIA became the most valuable company in the world at $3.34 trillion. They overtook Microsoft, Apple, Samsung,
Das sind übrigens Milliarden, ich sag's nur.
Alphabet. It's hard to stress just how big of a deal this is. I mean, Pokemon, you know, the highest grossing media franchise in the world, this could buy that company 36 times. And we know NVIDIA. You might even be watching this video using one of their graphics
Ja, tue ich.
cards in your PC. But we're talking a company that overtook Apple. You know, the guys who managed to sell luxury smartphones to like a third of the world's population. You don't beat that just with some high-end PC graphics cards. So, what on earth have NVIDIA done to A, get themselves to a position where they could even
By the way, hat er mittlerweile Ding besiegt? Hat er mittlerweile Apple überholt? Nein, es fehlen noch 57.000 Abonnenten. Chat, wenn er Apple überholt, also seht ihr es wieder gar nicht, wenn er Apple überholt in Abonnenten, dann baut er das größte iPhone der Welt.
dream of overtaking all the other big tech companies, and B, actually overtake them. And one thing that I need to make super clear, which makes this all the more surprising, is that NVIDIA only started in 1993, which is recent enough that the guy who is now CEO, Jensen Huang, he was the same guy who founded the company, along with two other guys. Jensen used to work as a waiter's assistant in a local Denny's diner when he was younger. He fell in love with computer science, and so eventually went from there to getting his dream job working with AMD, one of the leaders at the time as a microprocessor designer, until one day when he decided, I got an idea.
Ich mach's einfach besser und selber.
Basically realized the key thing that was holding PCs back from unparalleled performance, which I'm getting to. So he booked a table all the way back where it began, at a Denny's diner with these two other guys, and that is famously where they hatched the plan to form NVIDIA. There's literally a plaque on the wall where that meeting happened. But NVIDIA didn't have its name at this point. Do you know where that came from? Well, most of the guys' files documenting their plans about this future company had been pretty uncreatively named Next Version. So when they decided that we're actually doing this, they looked up words that included NV in that order, and they found the Latin word invidia, which is the name of an ancient Roman goddess. Invidia was the personification of envy, a pretty unpleasant lady with a poisoned tongue and green eyes. Thus the name NVIDIA was born. So the brand name basically means next version envy, kind of saying, you're going to be so jealous of our next chip. And now that you know where the green eye logo comes from, you too will no longer be able to see it without also seeing this haunting image alongside it. So, you're welcome. And now that you know, you will see this origin all across their branding too. Like the slogan for the GeForce 8 series graphics cards was green with envy. And the company's highest end GPUs for a long time.
Digga, halbe, keine Ahnung, was gerade da liegt. Halbe Firmengeheimnisse.
They were called Titans. And this NVIDIA was believed by some ancient Greeks to be the daughter of a Titan. So it all links together. But
Digga, NVIDIA basiert eigentlich auf der griechischen Mythologie.
what actually made NVIDIA different? What was this big idea that they were getting together for? Well, in 1999, NVIDIA released the GeForce 256, the first chip ever to be marketed as a graphics processing unit, or GPU. A piece of hardware that could sit alongside your CPU, which at this time could only process one calculation at a time, and take on the graphics rendering load while you're gaming using far more efficient parallel processing. It was designed to divide big tasks that would previously be done very slowly into smaller parts, and then distribute those parts amongst many, many small processor cores, which in turn freed up people's actual CPUs to focus on things like in-game physics. The concept of the GPU quickly caught on in both PC
Heißt, NVIDIA ist eigentlich der Erfinder der Grafikkarte. Und AMD, obwohl die viel länger eigentlich schon Chips und wahrscheinlich CPUs gemacht haben vielleicht kopiert von einem eigenen Mitarbeiter.
and console gaming, which
Stark.
pretty much revolutionized gaming and very quickly turned NVIDIA
Oder von
into a
einem ehemaligen
household name.
Mitarbeiter.
And NVIDIA has absolutely killed it with GPUs ever since then. Fun fact, actually, this is the graphics card I installed on the first ever PC I built. Every couple of years, they've come on stage, they've announced a new generation of graphics cards, and they've been so successful at making each one a
Das
leap.
Geile war, wie ich mein PC halt zusammengestellt bekommen habe, hat der Typ, der das gemacht hat, zuerst die falsche, zu kleines Gehäuse gekauft. Meine Grafikkarte ist eine 4080. Die ist zu groß gewesen fürs ursprüngliche Gehäuse.
above the last that they're now outselling their traditional rival AMD, you know, the company who Jensen originally got his dream job working at, to a ridiculous extent, with NVIDIA's first quarter revenue this year at $26 billion.
Digga, 26 Milliarden in einem Quartal ist halt bodenlos.
Compared to AMD's,
Digga.
well, measly 5.5 billion. But they didn't get as big as they are today just by coasting on GPU sales. Here's the rocket fuel that made their growth just explode. NVIDIA made a huge bet on AI. In 2006, NVIDIA released CUDA, Compute Unified Device Architecture, which
2006?
they could have done a better job naming for something that's actually a bit of a game changer. It was a software platform that allowed the developers of apps to properly utilize the full power of NVIDIA GPUs, even for non-graphics tasks. Developers could take tasks that would usually be performed one by one on the CPU cores, and instead, just like they've been able to do with games on NVIDIA GPUs, split those tasks up and perform parallel processing using the thousands of GPU
Digga, die haben ja alles durchgespielt in Wahrheit. Die haben Computer einfach durchgespielt, das Game.
cores they now had access to. This was a big moment for apps. It made NVIDIA's graphics cards the tool for much more than just gaming. They became the
Aber auch heute noch, auch zum Beispiel in OBS allein bei Einstellungen, brauchst du in Wahrheit ja schon eine NVIDIA-Grafikkarte, dass du einfach Einstellungen bekommst und die du auf AMD teilweise ein Jahr später erst bekommst.
gold standard for video editors, for financial modelers, cryptocurrency miners, anyone who wanted to do anything with a computer. And most importantly, for any company wanting to build and train a big, powerful AI model, how do you do that? Not on CPUs, which are doing things one step at a time, but instead by harnessing the full power of a GPU. And which GPU are you most likely going to pick? NVIDIA's. NVIDIA being the first company to unlock the full computational power of the GPU for the average developer meant that their CUDA software became the default option. Developers got comfy with it, it improved very quickly, and because this CUDA programming environment was built specifically around NVIDIA's graphics chips, it was super efficient. It's very similar to how efficient iPhones are, because every thread of the iOS software is designed around every fragment of the iPhone hardware. And with this, by being very forward-thinking, by working with other tech companies on AI for literally the last 2 decades, NVIDIA became embedded into the very fabric of artificial intelligence. Whether it's researchers wanting to run complex simulations to figure out what proteins could potentially cure major diseases, or Tesla wanting to train algorithms for their self-driving cars, NVIDIA became the crutch to lean on. Literally, right now, Tesla's nearing completion on a supercomputer cluster at their Texas Gigafactory, which is supposed to improve Tesla's full self-driving using 50,000 NVIDIA GPUs.
Yeah,
and a sub to the channel
crazy.
would be GPUtiful. That also could have been
Yeah.
better. And so, when AI development exploded over the last couple of years, with every single person and their dog now having access to tools like ChatGPT, Gemini, and more, what's running all of that? When we ask for an image of a robotic flamingo doing roly-polies on the moon, what's processing that AI request? Yes,
GPUs.
NVIDIA. But another crazy bit of context, NVIDIA's tech is also what powers Amazon Web Services, which is the world's most broadly adopted web services
Digga,
provider.
Nvidia hat ja wirklich alles durchgespielt. Die haben einfach generell das Unternehmensgame durchgespielt im Allgemeinen.
They're the company who builds the infrastructure for basically 30% of the cloud-based internet. So the chances are pretty high that anytime you visit a website, there is NVIDIA tech somewhere along the pipeline that's bringing it to you. So that explains the first part of this puzzle, how NVIDIA became the sole arms dealer of the chips required
Ja,
for
das ist ja gefühlt ein Monopol, was die da aufbauen.
the now massive AI industry arms race. But how did they go one step further to actually overtake every single other tech company in June? Well, they decided to do a 10-to-1 stock split. And to find out what that is, I can just ask the Aria AI baked into the
Ach, Digga. Jetzt kommt nur Para-Placement. Oh. Also, by the way, ich verwende Opera GX immer noch, obwohl ich ein Video gegen die gemacht habe. Ich bin einfach zu faul, Browser zu wechseln. Aber jetzt kommt Opera Placement.
For a browser, explain to me a 10-to-1 stock split in 2 sentences with an example. Right, so a 10-to-1 stock split means that each existing share of a stock is divided into 10 new shares. And then it gives an example to say that if you owned 100 shares of a company and they did a 10-to-1 stock split, you would now have 1,000 shares in your possession. But the total value of your investment is the same, because it's just that now each individual share is worth a tenth of what it used to be. Why does that matter? Well, it means that for new investors, NVIDIA shares have just gotten 10 times more affordable. So it makes investing in this company much more accessible at a time where the entire world is looking for some way to invest in AI. It became a no-brainer. It was explosive. As for now and the future, while NVIDIA has been hit with a pretty severe market correction, so they're back down into third most valuable company. And while there are some question marks around AI, like, is it being overvalued in the same way that the dot-com bubble was? And can the world sustain it? Because, there was a recent study that showed that at the current rate of growth, our AI needs alone will consume the amount of power of an entire country the size of the Netherlands. But even then, now that the AI cat is out the bag, it doesn't look like AI is going anywhere. And even if it does, there's no changing that the world is going digital. Movies are now being made using game engine graphics. Surgeons are now honing their craft using digital twins of patients before operating on the real thing. The metaverse, if that ever comes to fruition, it's all being powered by NVIDIA GPUs. So,
Digga, die haben wirklich alles durchgespielt. Die Firma, die haben wirklich alles durchgespielt. Das ist ja bodenlos. Hallo?
That's how NVIDIA got to the
Und das Gott für AMD ist ja eigentlich doch. Das ist ein ehemaliger Mitarbeiter von denen.
crazy position that they're currently in. And by the way, Aria isn't even the most fun thing about the Opera browser anymore. So you've seen how tab islands can help you group together
jetzt kommen Gruppentabs
all of your tasks into buckets so they're organized. But now you can hover over any tab and add a tab emoji too.
Können wir das auch mal? Nein! Geht im Gaming-Browser nicht.
Well, aside from a delightful touch of customization, I've had two benefits from this. One, that every time I have two similar tabs open, this allows me to differentiate them instead of persistently gaslighting myself into opening the wrong one every time. But also when you're browsing, you tend to have one or two key tabs. Like for me, it's the document I'm compiling all of my research into. And tab emojis mean that even if you've got
online? Warum?
like 40 things open at once, I always know to return to my cooking emoji. So give it a go using my link in the description.
Ja, weiß ich nicht, ob es so schlau ist, Opera zu bewerben, aber ja. Ja, Video ist gut gewesen. Was soll ich sagen? Die haben das Unternehmensgame durchgespielt, NVIDIA. Wie gesagt, seine Videos sind immer saugeil. Abonniert ihn, damit er Apple endlich mal überholt und all den Abonnenten nicht in Market Shares. Und an die YouTube-Show. Vielen Dank fürs Zusehen. Wir sehen uns beim nächsten Mal wieder. Lasst gerne ein Like und ein Abo da, wenn euch die Reactions gefallen. Und abonniert auch den Main-Channel. Schaut da gerne beim letzten Hauptvideo vorbei. Und wir sehen uns beim nächsten Mal wieder zur nächsten Reaction. Ciao, ciao.